All right, hello. Good to be back with you all again this year. It's great to see you all. My name is Gary Carter. I'm from Fairview, Texas, just north of Dallas. In spite of what my sweet, beautiful wife might tell you, I am not a calcaholic. Truth be told, I have no problem acquiring calculators and deciding what I like and dislike about the user interface, the features and functions, ease of use, or even satisfying my nostalgic interests. Okay, maybe she has a point. I got my first introduction to HP in college. They had HP 35s that I could check out. When I became an engineer, I bought the HP 41 in 1979, and that carried me 3 decades. HP 50 I got later in life, didn't quite make the RPL jump. Then the SwissMicros I got involved with in retirement as I started, like a lot of us, getting back to nostalgia. I found my calculator in the closet. Batteries had leaked in it years ago, and 41 didn't work anymore. And I started looking around, and guess what? I found you guys again. You know, I had purchased the PPC ROM. I knew who PPC was. And then I found the DM41X. Bought that, started playing with that. I was absolutely amazed. And the rest is kind of history. So, you know, there's a whole history of community developed things. The PPC ROM, as I mentioned. I was in Dallas. I worked for Rockwell International. PPC ROM, the Handy Compact by ComSat General, those were kind of in my calculator all the time. I read about the HPACs, the ZenROM, the libraries of programs from community of enthusiasts, and there's numerous books and publications and a long list of other items. And that community enthusiasm continues today. Angel Martin with his extensive library for the HP 41. Thomas Oken with FreeXP42 and Plus42. Diego Diaz with CloneXD, Nova 64, USB 41, and Minduk Coopers with the Tulip. This presentation will delve into a current community-driven development that began with a spark of an idea as far back as 2005, and its story continues today. It's known to many as the C47 project. I was given permission to use some of the information that was presented at HPCC in 2024. See if this works. Yep. So the development team consists of a small group of volunteers spread all over the world. You've got Polly down here in Tasmania, Yako down here in Cape Town, Mihail in Japan, a whole bunch of people, Robert, Danny, Hakon, Martin, Didier, Ben, and Walter in Europe, and somebody with the initials of DA in Canada that I still haven't found a name for. Somebody here may know who that is. According to Yako, though there's been a lot of interest in terms of users by the Americans, by the number of bezels sold, about half of all bezels sold, none have joined to contribute to the open source project. So what is an R47? Well, first, let me tell you what it's not. This calculator is not for sale yet. The 47 project is a community developed and supported initiative that has made significant progress over recent years. The C47, a firmware build targeting the DM42 hardware on the SwissMicros hardware platform, was successfully utilized to prove in firmware settings and evaluate a variety of keyboard layouts and use cases, leveraging the keyboard overlays for the DM42 hardware. Those who frequent the SwissMicros forums are aware the 47 project is open to constructive criticism, suggestions, and ideas for new functionality. The developers have implemented a number of functions not considered in the original spec. Most recently, the 47 project team has been in discussions with SwissMicros on the concept of productizing the R47. That's what you're seeing here. 2 prototype builds have been produced, and we await a formal announcement in the coming months. So back to the question, what is an R47? Well, R47 is the answer to a question that has been asked many, many times, especially in this venue, it seems. If a new advanced RPN scientific handheld calculator were to be developed today, what would HP do? I'm reminded of a similar pondering posed to deep thought in The Ultimate Question of Life, the Universe, and Everything in Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And as it turns out, the answer 42 may have not been too far off the mark. Robert's documentation database, which we'll explore in detail, makes it possible to produce the metrics about the underlying software that comprises the 47 family.
How many digits?
There are 478 commands, 527 functions, 187 menus, 225 settings, so it's a lot to manage and to present to the user in a useful and usable manner. Let me go back to the slide.
How long will it take the user to master this machine?
Well, that's an interesting question. The whole point of this was to try and produce something that reduced the number of keystrokes it got to any particular of those menus or functions.
So got an integer mode in there?
Yes. So now let's explore the rich heritage, the DNA, if you will, from which the R47 was realized. Each of these products represent a part of the evolutionary timeline that resulted in the R47 being possible. The R47 draws heavily upon the feature-rich RPN scientific calculators that inspired us all in the 70s and the 80s. In the early 2000s, there was an opportunity seized by a group of community developers, Walter and Polly, the WP project, who sought a source of calculator hardware capable to deploy their firmware. The HP20B and 30B platforms served to support this exploit in the WP34S and the WP34C. At the same time, SwissMicros began operations, and soon a plethora of reimagined HP classics were being produced, the DM15, 41, 16, 42, and the 41X. It was the DM42 that caught the eyes and imaginations of community developers, and in 2019, the WP43C open source project was born. As it goes with any group of invested developers, differences in opinion crop up. A benefit of open source development is the freedom to fork a different path from the main and adopt different specifications and/or embrace new ideas. This is how C43 and ultimately the C47 project came to be in 2022. A lot of midnight oil and sweat equity has been invested to reach a point of product realization, which is now called the R47. Here we see the classic Hewlett-Packard RPN calculators that were the inspiration and influence that are derived from, combined with more than a decade of newly inspired community-developed RPN calculator firmware, all facilitated by current hardware technology made possible by SwissMicros. Jaco Mostert spent a great deal of time deciding on efficient keyboard layout and the development of a new keyboard font set based upon the best of the best HP produced over the years. Specific functions and features that made HP's legacy scientific calculator designs popular were leveraged. Mathematical functions present in the R47 draw upon the success of Walter Bonin's open source firmware proven in on the WP34S and 43S series of calculators. Additional features and functions were provided by community-driven preference and proposals made to the C43 and C47 project team. So where is the 47 family going? Parallel platform, simultaneous development for both the C47 and the R47, so identical software on both, and perfect synergy. Now note, the R47 has the classic split keys. And what really drove this project was Jaco's insistence that the mathematical functions be like the classics on the right-hand side. That's where the fork came from. These menus show the same sort of thing that we heard from Jake on with the DB50. You can get 18 different functions within one shifted keystroke away, or if it's the bottom line, one keystroke away. The menu is unlike the DB50, and I may be wrong here. If it's got more than 18, because they're similar functions grouped together, there'll be a couple little arrows over here, and the up-down arrows here move this up. And so again, the next set of features that come up that might be an electrical engineering menu that are associated together are within the same set of shifts away. Does that answer your question, how you're going to navigate this? We're at 12. So C47 will feature a retrofit bezel, which you see here. You can get it from Jaco Mostert or from Spiff 72, the same as Jake got his. The R47, we hope, will be a standard product built to 47 project specifications. Smartphone app is a hope for, but there's no concrete decision on that yet. The strength of the R47 is found in the well thought out user interface and keyboard layout. Robert Van Meenen leads the effort to unify work across design, development, and documentation aspects of this project. After listening to early presentations on the W43S and W43C, Robert came to realize his preference aligned with the C, the classic keyboard layout that you see in the R47. He proposed to help, set in suggestions, interacted with developers, and proposed to engage. Documentation was determined to be a top priority, but documentation's too simple a word to describe what the role Robert plays. The photo inset here is actually an example of the menus. They're the foundational approach to organizing R47 functionality. The menus are alike in structure, with similar things grouped in same locations, and where other different things are marked as such, being in another location. Robert recognized the need for and took the opportunity to formulate principles to constructively focus emotional discussions and debates to arrive at logical conclusions. This meant, as proposals are made, certain questions need to be answered, such as, can it be explained? How does it conform? Is it familiar? And to facilitate more subtle topics like, what's its rhythm or cadence? Having such a high number of optional settings, there was a need to ensure separation for different radio buttons and checkboxes in the GUI to avoid confusion. The 47 family has several layouts, C43, C47, R47, and others, some tried and true, and some experimental. How do you document that? You don't need to do it differently for every variation. The 47 simulator needs to support a suite of different keyboards. There's a Swiss developer, a French developer, a Dutch developer, international users anywhere and everywhere. All the keyboards are different. All the keys are different, and so the keys are in different locations. How do you accommodate that? Then there are things like, what are the defaults? They may need to change. You want documentation to reflect the right defaults. It was at this point Robert decided to build a spreadsheet-based database to tackle the challenge. The result? More than 1 million cells filled with data and more than 800,000 formulas. This represents about half that database. The most important part is the list of items, each of these sections. The code is organized based on a list of internal names, the code names that will not change, but the label and the way they're presented to the user on screen might change as experience and feedback may dictate. There is also a definition of all the menus, which relate to the items. Then we have the definition of the keyboards. This is just part of the flexibility that needs to be managed. Robert accomplishes this in a very disciplined way with a list of attributes for each item. And the net result is that you can do all kinds of things, and although a spreadsheet may seem boring to some people, you can accomplish wonderful things with this kind of tool. So you've got some things that look pretty mundane when you kind of glance through their documentation. Some things that are colorful, kind of lead you to the right conclusions. There's 400 pages of documentation that have been generated from this one spreadsheet. And as the project evolves, as a change to one name in one place occurs, it's propagated in all the documentation. Here are some examples of the documentation, and this is the most important aspect, where things are found on the keyboard. This tool makes it easy to stay current with the variations in design as a variable that defines which layout is in use when it's set, and that change is automatically reflected in the layout. This is the way the menus are documented. All these things are linked to the primary list of items with additional information to explain its use case. Yet to come is more tutorial-like documentation. This is all reference documentation, which is the first need, and thinking forward, the 47 team are now exploring ways to produce more user guide documentation. There are folks in the user community that have developed and produced tutorial resources, and that's a great thing. There's wiki pages, YouTube videos, and more. The 47 team wants to take these next steps as well, but that's not yet decided. This is another example. C47 has a catalog, much like the HP41, but this one's larger and looks better. For every item here, you'll find the relevant information is a separate report. This is a recent report out of the database for a normal international keyboard with all the keys where they're expected to be. This diagram shows what shortcuts are available for the simulator, and the way they are shown includes the corresponding primary function, F-shifted function, and G-shifted function. There are many variations of the diagram corresponding to the layouts for various international keyboards, and this has really helped the 47 team. Robert shared that he had a very different proposal that he found quite useful, but he was the only one. So in the end, he dropped it, and this came out of that. It's far stronger and allowed the team to add a lot of shortcuts that had not previously been considered. This diagram allowed the team to think that way. This is one of the least eye-catching, yet most useful reports, the full index. Here we see the use of an Excel spreadsheet, which is in fact a limited database, to do a sort of reverse lookup to present what is where and be complete about it. This is kind of cut off, but the whole description of each one of these functions shows up for every function in the calculator. Lastly, this effort is more than just documenting things. This tool supports interaction between design intent, ergo specifying what should go where to the development team and to the actual documentation. There's 4 examples. First, how do you support the discussion about new layouts? Robert made a simple Excel-based tool to support the team, and as some are not generally, graphically oriented, relying instead on communicated by text in the internal forum. If, for example, someone proposed to move the roll-down key 2 positions left and 1 up, nobody could imagine how that looked. And Robert hesitated to spoil the existing documentation for the sake of a proposal that requires further consideration. So he made a separate tool and was able to instantly change the layout, follow the discussion, show the new diagram each time, and this helps when it is a definitive decision. Robert imports the agreed upon layout into the documentation immediately. Similarly, there's menu redesign. There's a lot of philosophy involved. What is done normally is just putting text in Excel without anything behind it. Once agreement is reached, Robert imports it to the documentation, pushes 1 button, and Jaco can import it to the code base. Nothing's left to interpretation. Nothing gets lost in translation. The Excel tool exports the relevant code that is then placed directly into the compiler. No changes required. A powerful feature function of this design modeling documentation approach. At HPCC 2024, Robert was asked where he imagined this approach. He replied that as a young student, he read about the challenges Apple faced when they couldn't describe the function completely and correctly or easily, and they subsequently had to change the function because it wasn't designed or implemented correctly. That thinking is what inspired Robert to propose things like this. This highlights the importance of having documentation, design, and development go hand in hand, and how it can be facilitated if you listen to each other. This makes it easy because it's all so structured, almost like code itself. Another example of how this was used was when a question was raised regarding the simulator. They wanted to add the Greek character layer to the simulator functions to make it easier for the simulator to enter Greek characters and support equations. The issue for the team was it wasn't clear which Greek characters were already used in various commands and functions. How do you find that out? It's easy if you have a database. It was even relatively trivial to do this in Excel. What came out of this query was a simple list of characters, and in the end, support now exists for the entire Greek alphabet. They can be used in menus as well as in equations. Going further into the design consideration for menus, one of the developers was deep into improving this, and it was easy for Robert to describe the layout, the navigation, the workflow for the menus as it was at the time, which in Robert's view was incorrect, as depicted by these red lines in this drawing. Robert proposed how it should look, and depicted by the green lines in this drawing. Based upon his recollection, this was implemented in the same day, again demonstrating the effectiveness of this approach. So here's several examples of YouTube videos that are available. Team Tricky, Mike LaFell, produces YouTube material that demonstrates the ease in which the C47 R47 calculator can be used to solve mathematical and engineering problems. Included in his videos are a number of custom programs and custom menus that improve efficiency when enabled via the C47 R47 user mode feature. The user mode is very much like the HP41, where you can assign functions to keys or entire menus yourself. You can build your own menus, group functions together that might be useful to you, and then present that in the 18 levels of the 47 menu system and be just a single stroke or an F shift or a G shift away from those functions. A German YouTuber, N.A. McBee, had some videos that I found interesting: how to install the C47 firmware into the DM42N, as well as how to create and assign custom programs and menus to the user mode keyboard layout. Calculator Culture has a suite of calculator reviews, including SwissMicros models and the C47 platform. Solurian has a suite of calculator how-to videos, including SwissMicros and C47 platforms. I'd like to say thank you to Jaco and Robert. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, I've got an R47 prototype here, pass around. Jaco Mostert also provided me the keyboard overlay for my C47. It's back there at the table there. And anybody can stop by and take a look at these. Team Tricky, Mike LaFell, he provided me source code and things to show and demonstrate some of the detailed and some more experimental things that he's working on for the future. NMXB for the YouTube video to get me started with the C47 a couple of months ago. Spiss72, who makes the keyboard overlays that Jake got, I also got one from him. Solurian and Calculator Culture for their YouTube videos. Mirhiz has an unofficial C47 wiki that has a bunch of good details that is kind of the user mode sort of documentation that the C47 team has not yet had time to produce. And of course, SwissMicros for the DM42N, HPCC and HHC for bringing me back to the calculators after all this time, and HP for all the handheld calculators and a lifelong journey down a well-traveled road.
For Moravia, continuing that journey.
And from Moravia as well, yeah. So here you can see some of the rotating things kind of quick, but each of these menus that you're seeing pop up here are within 1-2 shifts away, and you're there. It's very, very quick. It's not like the 50 experience that I faced, trying to navigate down into the menu structure and then find the function I wanted and come back up and do it again. I just never clicked with the HP 50. Still learning. Any questions? Bob?
What is Robert's day job? I really want to know.
I tried to figure that out, and I haven't yet.
You too, huh?
He's obviously a database guy. There's no doubt in my mind that he is a database guy. But he's also, which I've seen a lot of people, maybe there's some in here in this room, Excel is an amazing tool if you can learn the bazillion different things that you can do with it. And Robert has obviously mastered that here. The 400 pages of documentation, that when I first looked at it, it was just overwhelming. And I started asking questions on the board. And of course I got well, read the manual, it's right over here. You know, all 400 pages of it. And so I started kind of digging through. And it was when I found the full master list, I then started finding the shortcuts that I was looking for and the answers to my question, plus the wiki that, I forget the gentleman's name now. Mirhez. Yeah, that wiki is very, very informative. Yes, sir.
Rough speculative timeline on R47 availability?
You know, I want to say I could predict the future, but I don't have that crystal ball. And I think, given some things I know about the effect of our tariffs here in the United States, that may have an impact. Tragically, yeah.
Any talk about getting it on the 32, or you trust me with this?
No, I don't trust anybody with that, so I'm watching very carefully. Will it be, can you load it on the 32? I believe the C47 can be loaded on the 32. Yeah, now I will tell you I did have an experience. So Mike LaFell sent me a state file that he saved on the C47. And when I got Robert's R47, I thought, I'm going to plop that state file in here and run. No, you can't do that either. There is some keyboard translations that are not understood by the R47 when it comes off a C47. So I immediately, after I figured out which keys were now which, got back out of that and went back to the default R47 build and then manually loaded all the programs that Mike had provided me and turned around and re-exported them so I could get the source code produced out. So I verified that worked. But what I did find was I didn't have to rebuild the custom menus. They are all sitting in the R47. So by virtue of having loaded the source code, the menus did transfer and I didn't have to rebuild those by hand. So I don't know, I need to probably report some of this. I know that they're aware of it. It's been talked about on the boards. I don't know if there'll be a fix for that, so you can easily swap between 47 and R4 or C47 and R47. It really does need to work that well because you'll have people developing for both. Yeah.
I'll add one other thing. It's hard to characterize as a kind of comment, but if you kind of get interested in this and start looking at it and think, this is so cool, but I wish you did this differently, go to the SwissMicros forum and bring it up, because this is easily the most collaborative and welcoming community project I've ever seen. Just any person, regardless of who you are and what your background is, if you bring up an idea, it gets tossed around and evaluated and commented. And some of these random from left field end up in the mainstream probably because of Robert's tools that make it easy to evaluate the impact of it so that people can actually then drive what he's saying and see does it make sense, rather than it would be hard to build to see if it even is good. So Jaco just manages a very, very open, very inviting and collaborative environment. So I'd encourage you to try it. It's really, really, I see all the, being on the forum, Gene and I see all the stuff that gets said and done and all that, and I can tell you it's by far the most inviting and inclusive environment you're going to find for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's what really attracted me. It seemed like, you know, these guys were here to help, and the calculator to me is very much the RPN Classic with almost the DM32 thought process of I want to be 1-2 keystrokes away. I don't want to be 17 menus deep. It's a lot of menus, it's a lot of settings. It looks scary, but once you start playing with it, you realize, no, I can make that completely unscary. Anybody who's had a 41 and did their own user key assignments and user modes knows how they could tailor that calculator to exactly what they wanted to do. And the C47 and R47 are much the same. Thank you.
Thank you.